40 years has been an incredible journey for Junction. From where it's come to where it is today, every single person involved in this organisation for that time should be so proud. I'm incredibly proud to be heading up this organisation, following some wonderful leaders that have brought the organisation to where they are today. And it's a genuine privilege to do what we do.
They advertised for a worker, Noarlunga Family Services Board. They were a group of representatives for everything from the police to the church and the school headmasters, everybody, and of course the welfare department. And I thought, now it's going to be chaos if we don't have house rules. And so I thought, they're not going to obey anything that I choose to put in front of them. So I said, look, I'll come back in a few days and I'd like you all to discuss what you think needs to be done to keep the house and garden going, and then you make the rules and how you want to do it. So when I went back, there were far more rules and restrictions than I would ever have dared to put in. And I think you give respect and you get respect. I got a shock one day. I walked into one of the houses. It was a brand new cream carpet. And he'd disassembled his motorbike in the lounge on the cream carpet. Bits everywhere. Yes, so you do have your adventures.
Well, I was employed to look after the emergency property. We had one. It shocked me when I first saw it because it was a fairly old property. People had to share whether they wanted to or not, and often it was overflowing. I think it might have been Jim Phillips who discovered this funding source and we had Mulberry Court built, which was not for emergency housing, but it was for longer term housing, you know, where people could stay till they really didn't need us anymore. At that stage too, I think there was a lot more emphasis on social work. In fact, we didn't always need to provide housing. What we needed to do was assist people to live where they lived and not want to leave home. And so the family counselling was really, really important.
This is my 19th year with Junction. An opportunity came up for me to be able to do counselling with young people in the context of the families, and I felt that was really important. It's a privilege, I guess, to be brought into that space that people have that is only shared with people they trust.
I worked on the drug court program, which wasn't specifically for young people. I had a range of ages of people coming into that program, and it was a pretty tough program. But I have to say, our manager at that time, Chris HALSEY, was the best boss that you could ask for. Many times I found myself in hot water in the magistrates' court. So when she would receive phone calls complaining about our work, our advocacy and our support, and me, I could often overhear. And I used to get slightly nervous about would I be in trouble, but what I could hear was Chris firmly and strongly defending the reasons why we work in a certain way, why people deserve a second chance in the community, and how we should expect nothing less of advocacy in the court.
So there was a time back in 2005 where the state government, for the first time, was finding that they couldn't find enough foster carers, and it was in a context where the allegations of systemic child abuse had started to come out, and foster carers, there was issues and challenges there. And they'd started to put children and young people into hotels and motels for the first time in an emergency situation. Junction, of course, at that stage had a 25-year history of responding to the needs of disadvantaged and vulnerable children and young people. So I invited people from the Families SA to come and talk to us because I said, we can help you with this. Somewhat tragically, over that weekend, there was some allegations of some stuff that wasn't great in one of those temporary accommodations in a motel somewhere. And after that weekend, I got a call at 9 o'clock the next morning saying, how quickly can you put together one of those houses? And we did. We quickly used the Mulberry Court site that the organisation had had for many years and relocated some of the existing young people into other situations because it gave us a nice cluster, and we were able to establish the very first non-government residential service that we called the Supported Emergency Accommodation Service. The government then asked us to open a number more of those, and so we really piloted the whole thing around residential care in the non-government sector.
It was important because nobody else was stepping up. That groundbreaking work has extended within Junction to include now 12 residential care services and wonderful work being done for children and youth.
So the Affordable Housing Innovations Unit was established by the state government, and the intent was to find new ways to deliver appropriate and affordable housing for South Australians, and it happened that just at that time the Seaford Meadows development was just opening up. That was to be the largest urban development in South Australia. Junction had been doing work for 12 or 18 months before that because we were finding that young people who we'd been working with and supporting couldn't get access to further housing. You know, we could take them so far, but then there was nowhere to go. We developed a housing strategy which boldly set out to address that. And then out of the blue came this funding stream from the state government. One of the exciting things was that we were having a turning of the sod. It was a terrible day, the wind was howling, we were struggling to stand up. But on that day we said, today we are planting a community. And I had a handful of acorns at the time. And at that particular day, as we looked out across the windswept paddock, the frames of our first 6 houses were going up in the paddock. And it was an absolute turning point in realising we were actually building healthy, inclusive communities.
2010 was a really exciting time to join Junction. They'd just established Junction Housing and had been successful with securing about $25 million in capital from state government tenders and some financing support to build new housing. I think the biggest challenge was building the scale to realise the ambition and provide the capability that the organisation needed to respond to the challenges in the housing system. So the merger between Junction and Women's Housing really came about because of a confluence of circumstance and timing, and we were doing that in parallel to a period where we were bidding for new work with state government on the basis of that merger, like the Mitchell Park transfer, and we were fortunate that the capability of bringing the two organisations together gave us a seat at the table, which enabled Junction to secure that contract, which has been a really key part of the growth journey of the housing services at Junction.
We contemplated partnerships and collaborations, and there was one afternoon that I sat down and had a chat with Scott Langford and discussed a range of options which eventually over a long term led to merger between Women's and Junction.
Women's Housing was originally set up to look after women and their families who had experienced domestic and family violence. And part of our merger discussions would centre around the fact that we did need to have our clients looked after and continue to be looked after. And one of the great things about Junction that we weren't able to do in women's housing is combine services and housing. And we provided housing that was safe and secure for women and their children, but we weren't funded or able to provide any services to help our women become stronger and more resilient.
Biggest change is the size of it, and particularly the growth, as we had at merger was just over 700 properties, and then very quickly took on another, I think it was another 300 or 400 that year, and then the following year another 600, and then the following year another that. So we came to having over 2,000 properties from being small sort of boutique organisation.
Partnerships have been a critical part of the DNA of how Junction works as an organisation, and that extended through to the commercial partnerships that Junction formed with the likes of Fairmont Group and Rossdale Homes, trusted partners that built up their own understanding of our business and vice versa.
I'd have to say Scott was very easy to get on with. He'd actually promised us less paperwork than working with housing trusts, so it was an easy fit, and it turned out like that. In fact, the first project, the one at Noarlunga Downs, I remember us going down to the Southern Junction offices on South Road, and I took a team of 4 people down there. We walked into the office to do a presentation to Scott, and he was blown away by the fact I'd brought 4 people with me. And I jokingly said, well, we always try and outnumber the client. With that, he said, well, hang on a moment, and he walked out of the office and he came back with 5 people so that we weren't outnumbered. I reckon from that moment we knew that it was an organisation we could work with, because they knew how to have fun as well as achieve the results that they needed to achieve and we wanted to achieve.
Obviously we're in the southern community here in Adelaide, and we wanted to support a charity and an organisation that was looking after the southern area. So that was the immediate connection to Junction. But I think the work that Junction does, helping children and particularly women as well, achieve the most they can with their lives. We have the same values here at Red Arc with our employees, and making sure that we give them the best opportunity to be successful.
You know, this is kind of random, but I've always been passionate about the railway scene. I'm a train driver myself, and when you use the word junction, it's kind of a crossroad, isn't it? It's that opportunity where you're going to reach a Y point and your life can go either way. Junction to me is this wonderful picture of arriving at that Y point and making a selection for the better. And that's what Junction is all about.
The challenge Junction had was actually deciding which direction it went in. There's so many ways we could impact on the community. But of course no organisation can be successful if it's going in all directions at once. The thing that sticks in my mind firstly is that the success in being appointed as a Tier 1 housing provider, and that opened up a lot of opportunities for us, and ultimately that meant that the government had faith in transferring houses to us, enabling us to grow quickly. The people we work with, the council, the communities, have very positive view of Junction, and our staff can be very proud of that reputation we've developed.
My favourite day is Tuesday. It's our busiest day, but I get to interact with playgroup. I'm in the office doing all the office stuff. We have a bread delivery, so you know that's lovely being able to help the community out with the things. We have Oz Harvest come in. It's just a great feeling knowing that you're doing something for the community and helping other people, and it's just, yeah, just full on. It's a full on day, but it's just so worth it.
While the organisation has changed in size and the programs that we offer, that core value around what we're doing and helping others has been that main objective that stayed all the way through.
The friendships you make, watching the place really grow, watching it, and just hearing the stories of what we do and the outcomes of what we achieve with the young people. It makes it worthwhile coming to work every day.
Junction are so wanting us all to be a community, and they bring us together. My garden was just a plain dirt patch a year ago until they did the house up. I just left the yard like it is, and now it's all full of stuff now. Growing my own veggie patch for the first time ever.
We've been moving into placemaking very slowly. We've just started with the work we're doing in Mitchell Park, but I'd hope in 10 years' time we can see the fruits of that with a sustainable, healthy community, and one that has been successful not just in terms of the physical form and the new houses we're building there and the changes we make to the public realm, but also in the way the community is cohesive and successful and sustainable.
I think everything that we do is about the impact that we have and the long-term impact we can have. What we want to see is our ability to diversify so that we can keep them in our services right up until the point where they self-select out. It's not about us asking them to leave because a program's over, but they're ready to go because they are at a place where they can do it on their own. And for however long that takes, for us it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I just was just in a really bad place. My grandfather had just passed away. He'd been in a home with dementia. My parents had not long ago split up, and my mother had moved out. So then she'd gotten breast cancer and found out at the same time as my papa passing away, and it was only my dad, my sister and I at home. It's very hard, very, very hard. I don't want to think about where I would be right now without having someone and support and someone that I know I can trust.
We all have one thing in common. We are so passionate about what we do. We're so passionate about why we're here. We're all here for pretty much the same reason. We want to make a difference, a real difference, a genuine difference. That is the joy of being here. Those people are just, everybody that works for Junction are just amazing.